Blood of the Archon, Chapter 4, The Prisoner and the Paladin. Percy couldn't get the sound of Tessia's screams out of his mind, the way her face twisted in complete agony and the look of terror in her eyes as the nightmare behemoth struck her, a final death flail of a creature not of this world. And now she was unconscious. Again. She could have died. Percy was furious at how flippant they'd been with her life, so he didn't leave her side the entire time she was out. He didn't even know Tessia that well, but he felt a connection with her. They had been the sole survivors of an event that killed hundreds. That was something very few people could relate to. Tessia opened her eyes groggily. "Hey," she smiled weakly. "Tessia!" He sat up, wrapping his arms around her neck. He quickly pulled back, his face flushed. I'm sorry, I don't know you. I know you really don't know me. I'm glad you're all right." No, it's fine. I'm glad someone else made it out too. Dame Nestor's waiting for you in the temple. It sounded important. Thank you. I never actually asked your name. She laughed airily. Percival. Thank you, Percival. She sat up, then paused. Before I go, you should know. Your friend, the one I helped, I don't believe he was ill. He was poisoned. The next days passed quickly as the Legion of the Gods was built from the ground up. Sir Paladin, who had still refused to reveal his name to Percy, had been made the commander of the Legion's measly forces. A woman called Isidora had been made the spy master, and from Percy's momentary interactions with her, it seemed a well-earned title. The last member of the Legion's tribunal was a noblewoman named Lucrezia Alcantara, who was from the Dijari capital of Kalal. She was in charge of ensuring the Legion's relations with the outside world remained cordial. Given that the Legion was an upstart religious cult that seemed to opportunistically rise in the High Cleric's absence, Percy thought having such a diplomat would be useful. Not that anyone cared to hear his opinion, obviously. He had been thinking, mostly, and training when he could. It felt good to hit something. The last thing Janice had eaten before he'd fallen ill was the food that Percy had packed from home. Someone in their own household had tried to poison Percy, and Janice would have died for it if not for Tessia's intervention. She had left a couple of days ago to retrieve an ally from the Greenwood of Western Aethel, something about a group of Covenant sisters with some political connection or another. Percy didn't know much of the details. He was still being kept under watch. Tessia had proven her innocence to the gathered pilgrims at Sanctuary, recounting a vision of a being rescued from the blast by an aspect of Tyr. Percy had no such good fortune. The Legion was in a complicated predicament with him. On the one hand, sending him to the capital of Valmira and the home of the Covenant, Archon, to stand trial would undermine their authority and almost certainly end as an execution, regardless of his guilt. On the other hand, the Legion didn't have the resources or time to hold a formal trial. So he was stuck in an uncomfortable gray area between innocent and guilty. No one trusted him, and even Tessia was somewhat wary of him. That hurt more than he expected. He hadn't been able to leave Sanctuary with an escort and had only been given wooden or dull iron swords to train with. That was mildly humiliating. Percy was completely on his own. Every letter he had sent home had gone unanswered. The only thing he had received was a notice from his father's Privy Council, informing him that he had been removed from the line of succession and was no longer welcome in Edelheim. The frigid air was crisp on his skin as he swung his legs off the side of the pier, nursing the bottle in his lap. It was some kind of orcish brandy he'd managed to steal from Lila, the owner of the tavern in Sanctuary, where the Legion was stationed. If he was going to be stuck here, he might as well enjoy it. He wasn't technically supposed to be alone like this, but he thought the guards must have taken pity on him. He hated it. Their pity. He also hated the way they looked at him like he was a kicked dog, or worse still, the way they looked at him with disdain like he'd kicked their dog. It made him want to scream. It made him want to grab their dagger and show them who deserved their fucking pity. He hadn't felt this kind of rage in a while. Hadn't allowed himself to feel it. With Tessie's wariness of him, his imprisonment, and now his own fucking family abandoning him, he felt that familiar, satisfying heat rising in his chest. He wanted to break something. He wanted to make someone fucking bleed. He stood to his feet and screamed, hurling the bottle at the ice where it shattered into a million pieces. It didn't do much to assuage his anger, but it helped. A little. Wayfinder, you look like shit. Percy spun around to see Sir Paladin standing there in simple brown trousers and a dark brown jacket. His arms were crossed over his chest, and he was smirking at him. Fuck off, Percy slurred, wiping the brandy from his lips. Hard to believe you were ever a noble, he scoffed. How dare he? Percy growled and lunged at him, but missed as the man stepped out of the way. That was sloppy, Sir Paladin scolded. Then he tossed Percy a sword from his side. Try again. The sword landed in the snow in front of him, and he stared at it for a moment, then back up to the Paladin. He raised an eyebrow and picked it up, holding it in both hands as he readied himself to attack. Sir Paladin smiled and drew his own blade. His stance was precise and practiced. What else could Percy expect from a seasoned warrior? A paladin, no less. Percy lunged again, more carefully this time. Despite his inebriated state, he even managed to land a hit on the paladin's side. He sparred enough with Janice to know how to hit light enough not to cause any harm, but even still, he was surprised when he drew no blood. Before he had time to congratulate himself, however, Sir Paladin had disarmed him once more, sending his sword flying at least 10 feet from this. 10 feet this time. Well done, he smiled, bemused. Percy turned to retrieve his weapon. Oh, shove it, he grumbled, kneeling over and pulling the sword from the snow. He brushed the white powder aside and noticed something on the sword that he hadn't before. It looked like an engraving. He couldn't quite make it out, though. The sword had clearly seen some action, and the carving had become faded and illegible. Percy heard the snow crunch behind him, and he turned to see the paladin, making his way toward him, hands on his hips. Having fun playing in the snow, are we? He teased before noticing what he was looking at. Ah, yes, he sighed. It was a gift from my sister before I joined the Paladins. The engravings say to safeguard the light. Percy frowned and stood up. And you still have it? Most paladins join very young. The paladin shrugged. I was older than most, and besides, it's a good sword, for those who know how to use it, he added cheekily. Percy rolled his eyes and fought back a smile. He hated it when the paladin did that, when he acted so normal. Acted like he was normal. Percy hated how it made him feel. Worse still, he hated how he loved how it made him feel. It was deeply confusing. So, Sir Paladin cleared his throat, looking almost sheepish. Do you have any more of that brandy left? Percy rolled his eyes. If you're going to berate me for stealing from the Legion stores, don't bother. I know I'm getting an earful from Layla later anyhow. No, that's not what I... The Paladin sighed, rubbing the back of his neck bashfully. Honestly, I could use a drink. Percy's eyes widened at that, but when the Paladin didn't explain, he relented. Yes, fine, but I don't have it with me. They're back at my cell. He corrected himself spitefully. Sorry, my room. Sir Paladin's face fell, a reaction Percy very much didn't expect. I am genuinely sorry for the treatment that you've received. Everyone's on edge. They need to have someone to blame, even if that someone is innocent. Percy looked at him in surprise. You believe I'm innocent? Why? I was brash when we first met. Frustrated, scared, confused. There had been so much death, and I needed someone to blame, someone to punish. You reminded me too much of people I've known, Sadler and Helena, people I trusted, and then he clenched his fist, causing Percy to instinctively tighten his grip on the sword. You, Edelheim, you have nothing to gain from the death of the High Cleric and all the others. This chaos benefits no one, least of all Edelheim. I don't know you well, that much is true, but I can see you are no fanatic intent on sowing chaos. Percy nodded, trying to ignore the slight feeling of warmth blooming in his chest. It was probably just the booze. Right, well, thanks. Drinks? Let's go get some drinks. He mechanically handed his weapon back to the Paladin, then turned on his heel, marching towards Sanctuary and praying to the Wayfinder and anyone else who was listening that the Paladin hadn't seen the blush on his cheeks. It's Edric, by the way. the Paladin said, smiling at Percy softly over the mug of ale Layla had just poured him. Percy stopped sipping his own drink and looked at him, confused. What? My name, Edric clarified. It's Edric Royce. You were going to find out sooner or later. Best it be for me. Besides, he shrugged, it was childish of me to hide it from you anyhow. There it was again, that warmth. Oh, well, thank you, I suppose, Percy frowned. Why are you telling me all these things anyway? Not that I don't appreciate not being treated like some wild animal, I just... He trailed off, then shrugged. Honestly? Edric looked away, avoiding eye contact. Lady Suncrest asked someone to look after you, to keep you company. I volunteered. Percy felt his heart fall. Of course. Why had he expected any different? What did he think, that Edric fancied him? That simply didn't happen to Percival Drake. And he's fine with that, happy even. Romance just got in the way. It only led to pain. Like he didn't have enough of that already. Edric was just doing a favor for Lady Suncrest, watching over their poor little prisoner. If he hadn't already cried enough tears to last a lifetime, they might come now. But none reared their ugly heads, and he remained composed and stoic. Percy downed his drink in one long gulp and stood up, wiping his mouth with the back of his palm. Right, well, this has been lovely, Commander Royce, but it's almost my curfew, so I must take my leave. It wasn't entirely a lie. He did have a curfew. It just wasn't for a few hours. Edric frowned and opened his mouth as if to say something, but Percy was out the door before he even got the chance.